Brad, that ball was on the line. Please don't do this. After we went to Elegant Girls that time,
it was out.
I never told your wife. I guess it's time for me to hang it up.
Now? You've only been playing tennis for 8 years too long.
Fire her, Dad. It's hard to find a good partner. What do you think about me asking Darren?
When's the last time you even saw Darren?
Hey, Mr. Price.
Oh, hey, Barry.
Wanna hang out this summer?
School's out. I'm just a 33-year-old man, and you're an 11-year-old boy. We're not hanging out. Is everything okay?
Yeah, just stopping by to check on my bro. I'm making a run at the Open. I just need a partner.
I really like the movie. I mean, it kind of has the formula of a familiar sports movie, but the characters are very grounded in it for the most part. And the way the movie ends shows it's not really about the big game as it is about moving past, you know, traumatic moments, you know, that you've been through. Yeah, I mean.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And basically, were there any like sports cliches that you were looking to avoid, like for any like movies or?
You know, I think you know, both me and Gene, the writer, love good sports. Comedy, drama, Bull Durham, Tin Cup, you know. So, more than anything, as far as that kind of conversation, is that we wanted to make sure that the comedy never made the world broad and brought people away from feeling like these were grounded, real people in the world. And so that was, we had a censor for that and kind of making sure, you know, we never crossed that line. And I think cliches, I think instinctually, you know when something feels like a cliche to you. And that's, most of us have a thing in our heads that say, okay, that's not good. That doesn't feel real because it's something, you know, that is not real. And but again, it's different tastes for each person, you know. So for us, when I watch the movie, I don't see any cliches either, and you know, more or less, I guess, yeah. I don't see any. So it doesn't stick out to me at least, and so that's the only judge I can sort of answer to.
Right. And I mean, you played tennis for a bit before you made this movie, right?
I did. You know, I played poorly for years, and then over the few years that it took to get this movie set up, I worked pretty hard at trying to become better and working with different pros, and then as production neared, I started working more and more hours, and it was probably the scariest thing about the whole the whole journey of it, was stepping up onto that court and being filmed doing something that I really had never been watched doing before, and I'd never done in front of people before. I didn't really grow up doing sports, and so I didn't get that opportunity to kind of break down those those comfort zones, and so yeah, so I did get better and better. But David Walton, who we hired and has been playing since he was just a kid,
right?
He hadn't played for a while when we started, and he beat me swiftly. So it's a super frustrating game, and it's if you can learn when you're very, very young, then you can get a certain level of body awareness that is necessary. Wherein if one part of your body is not working right in coordination with the rest, you know it right away.
Right.
Correction is the biggest thing. Being able to self-correct.
Right. Absolutely. And your character is not exactly the most likable person in the world, but we still want to follow him throughout this. I mean, were you ever afraid that the character would be too unlikable, or was it hard balancing out, the outward appearance of the character from what was going on inside?
I mean, I just always loved how funny he was. I've always wished that I could not have a filter and and maybe after a few drinks, I kind of get a glimpse of that, and it's a liberating thing not caring what people think.
It is.
So I was not afraid of that because I felt like you didn't necessarily need to like me.
Right.
I felt like the main story was really Darren beginning his life and getting past this thing that he was holding on to somewhere in his past and just making that first step out into the world.
Right.
And that between that and the kid, this unique, sweet character that you can't help get behind, I felt like there was enough of enough to have compassion for and to root for in that way, and to have Jimmy, be a part of that Barry story and of course the Darren story as well. I knew that his storyline tied into those well enough that you were going to have, you were going to root for him too. But I also, I also tried to show his that he was a man-child. He has love inside him, and that he is a dick. He can't help it, but he really, he really does. He's not a mean-hearted person, mean-spirited person. He just can't. He just enjoys, making people uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, I love the scene between you and the kid where you basically, giving him life advice in a rather brusque way. It's like, no. When I say go away, it doesn't mean you mean stand your ground.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. Teaching him how to have balls.
Exactly. Yeah. And
that's wise, and that just shows okay, he does care. He does have feelings, and he even wants to help if he can, but he's not gonna, he's not going to show it in the same way that other people show it.
Right.
He doesn't want you to think he's a nice guy. That goes against his thing, but he still does things for other people. So.
Absolutely, and that's great. And you've had a very long career. You've started off as a child actor, and you've managed to move on to adult roles. I mean, how difficult was that transition for you?
It just takes luck, man. I mean, I got really gifted with a role at the right time on 6 Feet Under. Alan wrote that role for me, and over the years gave me enough stuff to do that I think allowed people to, kind of cement me in their memory as an interesting actor, and that is just luck, and so it is very difficult, but again, I don't know, for me, I guess I believe a little too much in chaos and happenstance, but to me it seems like there's just you can only control so much in this business, and so I'm very grateful for the fortunate path that has been paved for me.
That's great. Yeah.
But it could end at any time too, and I'm aware of that. So I'm always knocking on wood.
Yeah, I hear you.
Just gotta get my kids through private school, and
there you go. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, one of the movies I remember you from most is Grand Canyon, which is one of my favorite movies from the 90s.
Yeah.
I love that movie, and I love the score to it.
Yeah,
James
beautiful.
Newton Howard. What was making that movie like?
It was so special. I mean, I was a 16-year-old kid from Chicago. I'd never done anything like this before. I'd done a lot of plays when I'd grown up and commercials, and I had one big sort of theatrical, higher profile experience, but it was nothing like this. And what was so unique about this movie, and it's extremely unique now, but even back then it was unique, was that everyone had such a respect for Larry Kasdan, and he had such a free rein on this. This was obviously it's a very special personal film for him and his wife. He wrote it with his wife, and so there was just an overall sense of let him find his thing, and being a generous artist that he is, he brought the cast in, and he did this week of kind of rehearsal discussions. I think it was in the Four Seasons Hotel, actually. I don't remember which one, but anyway, that was many years ago. And we all just sat around, and now looking back, I realize how interesting and rare it was, because really that time was just to allow the actors to also get invested in a personal way, and so it was, for me it was the only experience, so I kind of assumed that's how all movies went, but it was definitely a special experience for me, and I think it was special for even people who had done it, made movies for years.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I definitely get that. And this movie, this took a long time. Breakpoint took a long time to get financed. Obviously, I mean, and you still had like 24 days to shoot in it. Is that correct?
That sounds right.
Yeah. How did that affect your performance at all, or did it help it? Anyway?
Well, compared to TV, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of time.
Right.
In TV, you're used to doing 8 or 9 pages a day, and even at 24 days, that was 4 pages a day or something, and that's amazing. So in many ways, we felt like we had enough time to not only accomplish what we wanted to, but kind of play a little bit too. And sometimes we didn't. Sometimes we were behind as things happen, because whatever time you get, you can use.
Right.
There's a lot to do, and there's so in some ways, knowing that we have more time than we used to maybe slowed you down for a little while, but ultimately, yeah. I mean, a schedule, especially as a producer, I had to make some creative and some help make some decisions that are pretty big and monumental, that in regards to the film, and what to not do and what to do, and that was a challenge for me. Usually as an actor, you can just harumph about it, or be excited about it, but to be the person there who really has to take everything into consideration, and pick the battles to fight, it was a new challenge.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, independent movies these days seem to be very hard to finance and very hard to get made right away. It usually takes a couple of years.
Yeah, and I don't open a movie, ordinarily. I'm not, I've done a majority of my work over the last 6 years on TV, on network TV, having very small hiatuses. So in the movie world, there's no you can't walk into a place and be like, no, trust me, I can open a movie, because you need that history and that proof, and it was arguably the more interesting role. So it was the role that most likely you'd give to a star, and so that made it more challenging. Also, there has never been really a really successful tennis movie, either critically or commercially, and so that was also something against us.
Yeah, I mean, the only one I can think of right now is Wimbledon, which I liked, but one of the other actors pointed out that there was a lot of CGI fakery in that movie. So, but this one definitely that wasn't the case. No.
Yeah, I mean, there were some good things about it. The thing about singles tennis is it's a much more intensely mental game. So, and even in the romantic comedy world, which Wimbledon lived, they still understood that, and they had that whole voiceover of him in his head trying to motivate himself, and so even in that world, they were aware of how that story needed to be more internal, whereas doubles, it can be much more on the surface, much more cinematic, really.
Much more cinematic, and just a lot more, I mean, you can share in the energy, and it's
Right.
not as lonely.
It's not as lonely, exactly right.
Yeah.